excited to be here with you today to interview Dr. Umar Johnson. Now, I told you guys that I was going to hunt him down, I was going to find him, and I was going to ask the questions that we all wanted answers to. So, here he is, Dr. Umar.
Glad to be with you.
Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to speak with me today. I'm really excited about your passion. I want to see you get your life's work done because I feel like it's important, as a former school teacher. And what sparked this conversation was a status on Facebook. I showed one of your interviews on Facebook, and I got a lot of feedback. So I want to address some of those issues because I feel like a lot of times in our community we don't have that platform. And so I want nappynaturalgirl.com as an independent source to be able to talk to people and get the answers. So my first question, which I think is a burning question because I've heard you speak on religion. And so there are people like us who don't necessarily feel like we need religion to tell us what to do, to govern us, or to guide us morally. But then there are other people who do in our community. And how do we, as a community, deal with that dilemma?
I think that one of the decisions we need to make, or paradigm shifts that need to happen, is we need to stop trying to dictate people's religious beliefs. For me, the religion is not as big as a problem as other people perceive it to be. And that's because, for me, it's not what a person believes religiously, but how they think politically, economically, and culturally that determines whether or not we can work together for the benefit of our people. If I look at the example that the Honorable Marcus Garvey left us with, one of the reasons why his movement was the largest and the most successful we had in modern times is because he never attacked the religion, nor did he try to change it. When you look at most leaders after Marcus Garvey, they all brought a religion, every one of them. Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought Islam. Noble Drew Ali brought Islam. Dr. King brought Christianity, and so forth and so on. So the wisdom of Garvey, which I agree with, was that he said, leave the religion alone. You're not going to be able to change people's religions. In fact, we're conditioned to back away from anyone who disagrees with our religious beliefs. So the way in which black people are indoctrinated will cause division if anyone tries to get them to think outside of the box. So I steer clear of people's religions. If I can change the way that they think politically and economically, they will come to a point where they may soon question their own religion without any outside interference.
Okay. All right. So in terms of that, because what I find is that in our community, it's like, hey, what's your name? What's your religion?
Yes.
So for me,
we make it too important.
Yeah. How do we tackle that? Like, how do I, let's say, as someone who is not very religious, how do I tackle that? Because, I try to tell people, well, it would be better if you asked me what Bible verse I like more, or what part of the Quran speaks to me the most to get to know me than what church I go to, or what's your religion. So for me, I'm saying, how do us as a conscious community who want to help break that religious barrier, how do we approach that in our day-to-day living?
I think we have to respect people's religion, and I think we need to focus on what our people are not focused on. In other words, religion occupies a very important place in African American life and social thought. So for me, I believe we should focus on those aspects of our reality that are being completely ignored. The political organization, the economic organization, the Pan-African movement. I think that we need to make other conversations more important than religion. Because guess what? Everyone can change their religion tomorrow. It doesn't change the condition of the community. If religion was the problem, you should be able to change it or get rid of it and see your problems dissolve. If we took religion away, our problems would still be here, because religion is not a cause. Religion is a symptom of historical amnesia. Religion is a symptom of an absence of a knowledge of self. Religion is a symptom of a people who needs an identity because they lost their original one. The reason religion is so important for black people is because we were stripped of our culture. So religion has replaced culture as our primary identifier. So back home in Africa, we would say, hey, I'm Zulu, I'm Wolof, okay, I'm Igbo, okay, I'm Yoruba, I'm Hausa. That's what we would be saying back home. But we were stripped of those cultural identities, and so religion has taken the place of them. That's the only reason why they're important. So if you replace the knowledge of self that was stolen, if you eliminate the historical amnesia with historical consciousness, I think the role of religion, you may not get rid of people's religions, but the importance that our people place on religion would probably wither down significantly if they had another identity. So give them back what slavery took away, and religion will lose its hold.
Okay. So, on the way here, we caught your lecture for sisters only, and a sister that I really respect, and a brother, a family, Mama, Bob, and kids. She was like, I respect you want to talk to him, but he is chauvinistic. So I want to know, why do you feel like you get that? Because I look for it, I couldn't find it, but I want to know, why do you feel like maybe women feel like you come across as chauvinistic in your values and belief system?
Well, only a few women feel that way. I have tremendous support from our sisters. I'm the most requested speaker in the country. I'm probably the most popular scholar in the conscious community. I'm definitely the most traveled. And my work as a school psychologist is largely with mothers, because the mothers are often the raisers and caregivers of our children because of the war against black men. And so because of that, my work directly is with the mothers. Tomorrow morning, I do my Black Parent teleconference. 99.9% of the callers are women. I just think that the detractors and the naysayers are so loud that it gives the appearance that their number is much greater than what it actually is. When I compare my support to those who may not support me, it's almost as if the lack of support doesn't even exist because the support is so great. It's probably a ratio of 99 to 1. So they really don't occupy a lot of space and time in my mind and in my thinking. But for those few who do disagree with my positions, a lot of that is born of a negativistic attitude, outlook, and disposition that a lot of black women have towards black men in general whenever we seek to discuss the role of black women in our community. There's a lot of sisters who feel that the black man's opinion is irrelevant. A lot of them have been brainwashed into the general thought paradigm that American society wants them to endorse, which basically says the black man is worthless and useless. So who are you to be giving an opinion on me or anything about me? Now, when you listen to the comments that I make about black women, none of them are derogatory. I'm a big supporter of black women. I have 6 sisters myself, dozens of aunts, grandmoms, the whole nine. So I'm a very big supporter of black women. So a lot of the more radical things that I've said relates to the ideology of feminism. And most black women are not feminists, you see. But the feminist group take issue because they believe that the black man is the cause of the black woman's issues. And that's totally false. White supremacy is the cause of not only the black woman's issues, but the black man's issues and the entire black community's issues. My issue with black feminism, which is really white feminism in ebony skin, is that you're trying to use a white woman's paradigm, a white woman's intellectual paradigm, and you're trying to adjust it to see if you can solve the problems of black women in the black community. The white woman's paradigm will not work for the black woman because they're born of 2 totally different cultural, historical, political, and economic experiences. You cannot take the white woman's war and try to use it against the black man. Here's the difference between the white woman's power struggle with her man and the black woman's alleged power struggle with her man. The black man has never controlled any institutions through which he could control the black woman. We don't control any institution in this society. So where is the power that is being wielded by black men to oppress black women? We don't control schools. We don't control employment. And when we look at it today, many black women far surpass the education and income earning potential of black men. So where is the oppression that the black man is actually wreaking upon the black woman? I will agree, we do have sexism in our community, but the black woman could basically, step outside of any sexist paradigm that the black man wants to put her within because he don't control her. There's a lot of domestic violence, a lot of domestic abuse, which has stemmed from fatherlessness, low self-esteem, and other issues that black women face. So that's a very big issue. So when I say that the black woman should not be blaming the black man for her problems, I mean that. But that is not to say that the black man isn't responsible for making life difficult for the black woman. Domestic abuse, rape against black women. Black women have one of the highest percentages of rape in this country. I think the objectification of the black woman's body as a sexual object, her as a tool of sex, as opposed to being a human being with thoughts, ideas, goals, agendas, I think that has to change. So there are some changes that black men need to make as it relates to their perspective on black women. But to say that there is a patriarchal dictatorship taking place in the black community, I want to know exactly where that is. Where are the black men who are able to hold and control the black woman in a position of oppression?
You know, I agree with that. And as a scholar myself, it's interesting to me because I find that most of the black feminists that I meet, I'm like, okay, so you went to college, so you had to have read Alice Walker, and you have to understand black women should be womanists in the first place because she set the tone in Search of Our Mother's Garden to say that, you know, our struggle isn't the same. And for me, we can just look at the wage gap. White feminists are not fighting for 40 cents. They're fighting for what, 22 cents? We're fighting for 40 cents on the dollar. They're fighting for 22 cents on the dollar. And when they are appeased, they will stop. They are not in allegiance with us. And I also feel that the things that you mentioned, like rape, sexism, and those things are still symptoms of our overall problems at the end of the day.
I totally agree.
So that's just my take. So again, in For Sisters Only, you dropped a lot of knowledge, and I can say as someone who lived that life that everything you said was true. You're sitting in a meeting and you want to tell a parent, please, no, don't say yes, but you know, it can cost you your job. But one of the things that I felt like you were doing in there was showing parents how to keep their kids in that system instead of how to take them out. I'm not impressed when a child comes home with straight A's. He was making my son Dorian was making great grades in public school. But then when I had him tested, he was a year behind, right? So for me, those grades aren't always a representation of what they're doing. And it's like, okay, so you made an A in white supremacy English today. You know, like you made an A in Shakespeare, but do you understand the law? Do you understand state law? Because they don't teach state law. They don't teach us the laws that we should follow or how to balance our checkbook or how to do our taxes in school. They teach us Shakespeare, Tennyson, how to, you know, find the slope of a mountain, but they don't teach us how to balance our checkbook. So why is it that you've decided to in these conversations sort of tell these women how to keep their kids in the system?
I don't think I do that. My basic premise as a school psychologist as an educator is that we have to build our own schools. I've never advocated revising, resurrecting, or revamping public education. That's never been my premise. But until we have schools for our own children, we do have to make sure our parents are equipped to defend their children in that system, which is one of the reasons why Team Pan-African, we're organizing the National Independent Black Parent Association, so parents are able to fight to advocate and protect their children while they're in the system. But the goal to fix education is to build our children in their own schools. You cannot force middle-class white females to properly educate our children, especially the boys. But it is my job to make sure parents are able to protect and advocate for their children while they are in that school. So.
Okay. So in dealing with that and dealing with my own son and being in that system, what I found personally, even when they are in, let's say, nurturing environments, Northeast DC, which is a black charter school. And I found even then, so I've been working with troubled kids for 10, 12 years. And I found with me, one of my biggest things was getting my young men to understand the value of education, the process of education, because honestly, I don't even think we understand what school is. Do you know? We don't understand what school is. What is school? What is the public education system. What is it for? Because I see parents get mad because their kids don't have enough supplies. I see parents getting upset because, you know, that their kid isn't being nurtured enough. But I just came to teach English, is what that middle class teacher is saying. And sometimes it can even be people that look like us. Like, I just came to teach my content. So I don't think we understand what school is and what we are looking to get from school. What should we look to get from the school system when we send our kids there every day?
Well, not much. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of why public school was initiated in America, public school was largely the outgrowth of a requirement or a need for big business to have a better educated worker. Big business needed people who could read, write, and count on a very basic level, so they put pressure on the government to provide a better educated worker. So schools were about turning out laborers for the factory. That's why public school was brought into existence. That's why we have mandatory public education. The factories of the American industrialization movement required education to make sure people could do the jobs once they showed up. So that was the purpose of school. But today, when there is no economy, there are no jobs, especially for our people. You know, with NAFTA and the Trans-Pacific Partnership and all these other presidential executive orders and programs that are hemorrhaging jobs from America, there's no longer a need for an educated laborer, especially not an educated black laborer. So the purpose of public education in this country, in this century, is to prepare black boys for prison and black girls for poverty. That's the sole purpose of public education today. Black boys have a 25% graduation rate. Only 3 out of every 100 black males born will ever see the inside of a college. 40% of them will spend some time in special education. More than 30% will experience juvenile incarceration at some point. If you look at the statistics, it's clear that public education cannot possibly have as its goal the proper education of our children. Instead, it is the preparation for failure. Now, true education is an education that prepares children on how to acquire and protect power in every sphere of human endeavor necessary for community success. So true education, how do you acquire political power? How do you acquire cultural power? How do you acquire economic power? How do you acquire international power? That's true education, to make your children kings and queens. True education is designed to prepare you to be a leader in the world economically and politically, to be a boss. If education is not preparing you to be a boss, it is a failure. If education is not preparing you to come out from under oppression, it is a failure. And if education is not preparing you on how to solve the problems that are unique to your community, not America, but education must deliberately target the problem-solving process for the issues that are critical to black people. If it's not doing those 3 things, it's not an education.
That's pretty profound. It's like you just shot down Common Core, right? Like in one swoop, and just basically shot down the whole paradigm of what we're looking at as I know public school today, right? Because it's not preparing you to be a leader or a thinker at all. So that's pretty interesting. So in that lecture, I think that's something that we should talk about more. I would like to see you talk about more, because I just really don't think that people understand that. Because as a former educator, I get a lot of parents who call me as well, and I'm like, what made you think that the school cared about that? You know, and I had a hard time getting my son to buy into it. So for him, once I got him homeschooled, he let me know, lady, look, I was just trying to pass. I didn't want them to call you. I wanted to stay out of trouble and keep my head down. That was his survival mechanism in school. And he was like, I wasn't building from one year to the next. He was not understanding how 2nd grade affected 3rd grade, which affected 4th grade, because that is really truly why I feel like our boys aren't disciplined and why we have so much, because they don't understand school. They don't know why they're there. They don't believe in it. Nobody's there wants to be there, not the teacher, because she's not really getting paid enough. Not them, because we're there 9 hours a day. One of the reasons why I took him out of school is because he was going 9 hours a day, and then we were spending 4 hours on homework. So My dishes not getting washed. My room not getting swept. I can just keep you at home and then spend these 4 hours teaching you what I need to teach you, and we can bypass these people. That was what I experienced. And so, and as a teacher, and I've taught, I'm telling you, to know my kids is to understand, like when I say, hey, what'd you do this weekend? I was arrested. Let me tell you what happened. Hey, babe, how was this, the Christmas break? The police came in and took my stepdaddy out. So I mean, I know that I know those kids. I know the kids that you're talking about very well. They're my boos. They're my babies. So they don't understand school. We haven't done anything to explain to them what school is, why it's important, and what this education is going to do for them, because it doesn't match anything in our society. So how do these single parents especially do that? Because it's kind of different when you have two parents in the house. So my husband and I were both educated. You know, we got the little pieces of paper on the wall, and we do educational things, and we do the banter and the intellect, and we read books and watch documentaries. So then my son sees that, and so he sees that as a lifestyle. But in homes where there are not many books, where there aren't two-parent homes where they can see the intellectual engagement, how do we explain to these young people the value of what they could possibly get out of this experience if they applied themselves?
I think therein lies the problem, from the perspective that our children are often asked to invest themselves in a system that they know is corrupt and is designed to ensure that they fail. And so on many levels, I think it's unfair for a child to have to commit themselves to succeeding in a system that is decidedly against their progress. I think therein lies the problem. Our children are very brilliant. They know that the teachers don't care. They know that most of what they learn is absolutely irrelevant to their future lives. They see that school has almost no practical or pragmatic value, and that is why their interest wanes. I cannot fault them for that. I think the problem is with us, the parents, the apathetic black community that doesn't go into the schools and fight to make them what they should be. And more so than that, to pool our money together and provide our children with the educations that they need. It's not fair to put somebody in a community and say, find a job when there's no jobs. It's not fair to put a child in school and say, get a good education when a good education is not being provided. I think too often our children are being blamed for failures of the system, which are not their responsibility. When you look at the structure of American public education, it's designed to always blame the victim. The child is always the reason why something isn't happening. The mother or the father in the black community is always to blame when something doesn't get done. If the test scores don't go up, the kids don't want to learn. If the test scores don't go up, the parents don't care. You know, if the dropout rate is high, you know, kids are more interested in hip hop. Parents are not supporting us. And a lot of that may be true. But guess what? I don't need parents in order for children to learn. I don't. I've been a principal. Those children are my responsibility. Okay? If the parent wants to help, great. But my teachers understand that this is our institution. Okay? We run this. And it's our job to make these children learn. Children learn every day who have parents who are not involved, as long as the teacher is committed. So using the excuse that we need parents, that's just a cop-out. We don't. In fact, when I open up the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, if I'm blessed, it'll be a residential school. And we would much rather not have the parents there at all, because a lot of our parents are psychologically unhealthy. They suffer from addictions, all types of mental illnesses. All of them are dealing with post-traumatic slavery disease, and our children are simply being reprogrammed with the same menticide that their parents had. We're not going to get out of this problem by letting the sick adults teach and rear the healthy children. My ancestor Frederick Douglass said that it's better to raise healthy children than to repair broken adults.
I see that theory a lot. And I find that theory like really unfortunate, especially when it comes to our middle school and our high school kids, because what I found in the black community is that for some reason our middle school and our high school kids are suddenly adults. when we look at them thrust against our American society. And what happens is, in my situation, what I've seen is that all the funding, all the help goes from about pre-K to about third, fourth grade. And then our middle schoolers and our high schoolers are left out there. I can't tell you how many high school kids I've seen that read on a fourth or fifth grade level because their education basically stopped there. And so, while, I love Frederick Douglass, I wish that we understood that, we got to help everybody. Everybody needs help. In my personal experience, too, I've seen parents, even those parents with drug addictions, and even those, a lot of people say absent fathers, but, I was in the educational system for about 11 years, and I dealt with lots of fathers, because our kids, they know their fathers. They may not necessarily always be in the home. They may not always be, the best role available, but they know their parents. They know their fathers. And I think that's something that I've seen, is that they have relationships. They may be complicated relationships or complex relationships, but often they know their father. And that's another stereotype that we get, like, oh, the brothers aren't there, but they're there. In my experience, I've noticed when I looked at my sign-in sheets, the fathers will stand up for their boys. They will come in, even if they do not necessarily know what to do once they get there. But that's just been my personal experience in the classroom. My next question is to you. So, in terms of homeschool, what advice? I know that you did suggest outside testing. I think I heard you say, a lot of times homeschool can be a failure because those parents aren't getting the kids tested from year to year.
They have to get them assessed. It doesn't have to be standardized testing, but you need to have a professional who is well-versed and experienced in assessment to be able to evaluate your children and let you know where you are, where they are, what you're doing right and what you're not doing so right. So myself as a school psychologist, I do a lot of that, the assessments to make sure parents are aware of how effective their homeschool regimen is. Because just because you're homeschooling doesn't mean you're doing it right.
Exactly.
So you need to have some sort of rubric where the child's progress is being measured outside of your own opinion. And unfortunately, a lot of homeschool children, the quality of the instruction is left up to the parent's opinion. And I have a big problem with that because most children are not homeschooled until 12th grade. They're normally homeschooled for a couple years, but at some point they do reintegrate back into the mainstream school system. And if they were not able to keep pace as they should have on grade level while they were being homeschooled, they're going to come back into school significantly deficient academically, which could inadvertently and unfortunately land them in special education. So it's important that parents, if you're going to homeschool, try to have a good idea on how long you plan on doing that. Are you going to homeschool for 2 years, 3 years? Or are you sure you're going to homeschool through 12th grade? Because if this is not a permanent initiative, you really have to make sure the children are making gains. Also, you have to make sure you're organized. If you're not organized, you shouldn't be homeschooling. You have to make sure you have the time, to homeschool. You have to be very, very disciplined because those 180 school days, they can go by so fast where you didn't even teach your child anything. I've seen it for homeschool parents. They keep putting it off, and this came up and that came up. If you have too much going on in your world, you're not going to be able to homeschool the child. One of the things I recommend is that you find a teacher who does homeschool and turn over the education of your child to that teacher. A lot of black teachers are being fired and laid off, so many of them are looking for work. So you can find a lot of teachers, who will homeschool your child for you at a price that's lower than what the private schools, or independent schools will charge you. Also, you need to have a school plan. You need to have a school calendar. How long is your homeschool going to operate per year? Is it year round? Is it 9 months? How much instruction is the child going to get a day? Is it 4 hours? Is it 7 hours? You need to know these types of things. What's your extracurricular activity plan? Physical exercise plan. You need to have that in there. What are you going to do to guarantee that the child receives some sort of social support because they need the social interaction and stimulation as well?
And all of those things I feel like are readily available because you can get consultation with an educator who can help you sort of sort those things out. And then I understand that if parents want to work with you, how do they do that? Because I hear you say you do assessments and you still work with kids even with your busy schedule.
Sure. I'm
how
a
do you?
private practicing school psychologist, so, and I have schools that I'm responsible for back in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I do all their testing, so they can reach out to me directly
Okay, like via your website.
through my
Okay,
email.
via email. Okay, great. My next question is, all right, so there's a desperation that is apparent when it comes to the black family wanting to restore the black community and sort of restore the black family. So I see a lot of people are talking about, I feel like a lot of the media plays on the desperation of single black women. A
I
lot
agree.
of the marketing that we see play on the desperation of single black women. How do we counteract that? And how do we remove that desperation sort of out of our community and sort of restore more traditional principles?
Well, number one, as far as the media goes, we're not required to partake in it. So a lot of that stuff simply needs to be disqualified from the social menu for most black people's lives. We're not required to watch the different shows that promote, the thirsty black female syndrome, and we need to divorce ourselves from that. So as far as the media, we just need to exercise more restraint. As far as how do you eliminate that, I mean, the truth of the matter is black men are rare. They are scarce because of the war against black men. So the black woman's concern that she might not find a mate, it is a very legitimate concern that can't be ignored. But I think that we could help control that concern to some extent if we were to organize marriage and if we were to organize dating in the community. That doesn't mean get involved in everybody's business, but we do need some structure that will allow women an opportunity to date without being taken advantage of, and will allow men an opportunity to date without having their characters assassinated if they don't decide to stay with that woman. So there needs to be some sort of protocol in place. I think it begins with the elders. I think that all brothers and sisters should go through a mandatory training program, socialization system that prepares them for marriage. You just don't wake up and say, I want to get married, even though marriage is natural. Just like you don't just wake up and say, I want to have a baby. You need to learn how to take care of a child. So I think we need systems in place that are not there. But we suffer from radical individualism. We do not see ourselves as part of a community or a culture. We see ourselves as a plethora of individual nations. Every black person is their own sovereign nation. They're not interested in linking up with another black person. We believe in this concept of privacy that I think is debilitating the black community, because we don't discuss the issues that need to be discussed because everyone wants to stay so private, even though everyone's dealing with the same types of situations. I think that a lot of this can be alleviated. I think that black men have to be held more accountable for their dating behavior with black women, but I think black women have to be held accountable as well. I think that it's not fair for the black men to often be put as the butt or the sole person or population responsible for the failure of relationships. Being a therapist, speaking as a therapist, women do a lot of wrong things to men too, but they never get highlighted the way that they do when men do wrong things to women. So we got to be more fairer in assigning responsibility when relationships are not successful. Every black woman waiting to get married is not necessarily of the quality of woman that a man would necessarily want to make his wife. And every brother is not just someone who's just, hungry for a sister's, physical gifts without wanting to entertain her intellectual prowess as well. So we got to bring balance to the conversation, but again, structure. Bottom line is you got more men than women. You have more women than men. Something has to be done about that. I don't think everyone needs to be polygamous. No woman wants to share her husband. But if you look at our situation, to not have a conversation, a serious and responsible conversation about polygamy without enough men to go around, then you're going to constantly see the withering away of black sisterhood. When I look around at black women, one of the biggest issues I see eroding the sisterhood. Not that it's always been great, but it was better than what it is now. And that's the competition for the limited pool of black men that's out there. And again, going back to being a therapist, I've seen everything from sisters to cousins, mother, daughter. I mean, women fighting, catfighting, relationships ending over a small pool of men because they're competing for the same man's attention. Something has to be done about that because it's creating romantic anarchy in the black community.
Okay. I think if we talked about polygamy, we would probably be here all night. But I do want to sort of delve into it because you brought it up. Because you said we need to have a serious conversation about it. I think that we jump to that particular, like I hear in what is called the conscious community, we hear that is the first solution. That's the first solution we hear. Like, oh, there are not enough black men, so let's entertain polygamy. But for me, I don't think that structure works because of all of the other conditions that we're in. So whereas I have met people in polygamous marriages from other countries, but they're not in the same economic situation that we're in. Mm-hmm. They are not in the same social situation that we're in. So maybe it's A, legal in their country, and B, they can afford, to have, I have 3 wives, and this wife is able to go to law school, and this wife is able to do this, and this wife is able to do this because I have the financial means to sort of do these things. And I think in our country, we're not there. A, because it's illegal, and B, because we don't have the economic and social power to institute something as radical as polygamy.
I don't agree with that because we already have polygamy. Very few men are monogamous. Black, white, rich, purple, rich or poor. We already have it in the black community. Many men have children with different women. There's many plural relationships that exist in the black community. I also don't think you have to marry the state to get married. I know a lot of people in polygamous relationships, happy ones, but I would say that I don't think we're ready for it right now. I think you have to prepare for that. I think a lot of paradigm shifting has to take place on both the parts of black men and black women for polygamy to be successful. I was raised Muslim. My father was not polygamous, but there's a lot of polygamy in Islam, and I've seen women get taken advantage of by it. So I am very, very aware of why a lot of black women look at polygamy with skepticism. And that's because most of them are only familiar with polygamy from the Islamic, the Hebrew, the Moorish, the Christian, the patriarchal type of polygamies that we see in major Western religions. They really haven't seen it from an African-centered, feminine perspective. In many African cultures that are maternalistic, polygyny was actually instituted by the females. It was not instituted by the men. It was the women who said that they wanted their sisters to have the same type of opportunities that they had. So it's very maternalistic in African society. But again, men have to be more responsible. Men do have to be able to provide. They have to be more above board with it. It cannot be a secret polygamy. If you have 2 wives, the whole community should know who they are. I think there needs to be elder oversight so men don't take advantage of it. But polygamy would not work now for the greatest reason being that black women have issues with black women. It's not the man, it's the sisterhood. Polygyny only works when the sisters want it to work. And with the competition amongst black women, I think we're a far cry away from polygamy now. The brothers got to make changes, but until sisterhood is what it needs to be, it will not work. The women involved have to love each other more than they love that man in order for that unit to work. But I know a lot of polygynous situations that are very healthy and very successful. But again, you have to prepare for that. It's not something you do tomorrow.
And the ones that I have seen that are successful that may be in America, what I learned, because I spent some time actually in a polygamous group of women, of sisters, and I wanted to understand that culture. Like right around the time I got married, I was just curious. And what I noticed is that they were brought up in the ones that were really successful were brought up in other polygamous relationships, so that maybe their father was polygamous and their mother had sister wives, and so then they grew up in a culture thinking like, when I grow up I'm gonna have a sister wife, and they knew that culture.
I think that makes it easier, but with any institution, if you want it to work, it'll work. If you don't, it won't. I don't think it's for everybody, but I do think the black community can no longer ignore it because it exists. I mean, most men, most women even, are in plural relationships. And so it's interesting how it's so taboo to discuss it or consider it, but it's okay for it to operate under the table in silence around the corner.
Right, but those aren't necessarily polygamous. I would say they're plural, but they're not polygamous. Because when we talk about it, to me, I thought, okay, well, when I look at the gay rights, when they went to get gay marriage, I was like, well, the polygamous people should be arguing for a different wording. Do you know what I mean? So that it could be legal, because if this sister wife can't pick up my son from school because she's not a legal guardian, then it's really not polygamy. It's just a plural relationship. Or if this sister can't get insurance because only one of us can get insurance. To me, those are the things that sort of make it polygamous when it's all in the open. Like you said, in society where it's known this wife and this wife are both married and they have the same rights to everything. Mm-hmm. I think that's where, for me, it gets kind of like, well, that's not really the same. And I mean, if my husband and I were to take on somebody else into our marriage, I'm already here. I'm legally married to him, so I'll have these rights, and then this sister won't have these rights. And so are we really anything, or is there a hierarchy, and is that okay? You know, so
well,
to
you
me,
can
that's
still
the
be because you can do marriage through a contract. You don't have to get legally married in order for the wife to benefit the way a wife would benefit through a marriage through getting a marriage license. You can get the same types of rights, privileges, and benefits through a contract. A lot of brothers I know who are in plural marriage, they're married to their women through contracts, not through a marriage license. So you can have more than one woman receive the same type of benefit.
That's really interesting. So I guess one other thing I want to tackle, because tell us exactly what your education is. You are a clinician. Tell me exactly.
I'm a doctor of clinical psychology, a certified school psychologist, and a certified school principal.
Oh, okay. So when you talk about, so we know there's a problem with the system. There's also a problem with our kids. Mm-hmm. I mean, even I find myself instituting some of the things that I've learned in public school to teach behavior replacement, mm-hmm. right? I heard you say today, discipline is doing exactly what you don't feel like doing because it needs to be done. And I think we lack that as a community, not just our children, but as a community at large. Because I work with small business owners and I say, okay, you're lacking discipline here. So how do we... Where do you suggest parents get these behavior replacement things from, or how do they begin to even just tackle like the behaviors they're having at home?
Well, one of the things that I've been quite successful with in working with our parents is having them read a chapter of my book. I do a lot of behavior modification. I have a pretty good reputation for helping parents change, modify, disruptive behavior in the home, and teachers in the school. And I have a chapter in my book that talks about how you change behavior without medication. And I put forth 15 or so rules. A few of them are, number one, the rule of consistency. You can't change behavior if you're not consistent with the program. Your consequences must be consistent. Your rewards must be consistent. The rule of discipline. If a parent doesn't have any discipline, they cannot teach it. You cannot teach responsibility to a child if you're not showing it. The rule of willpower. If a child is more committed to misbehaving than a parent is to changing the behavior, it will not change. So there's a lot of laws that go with behavior that if parents master them, they would be able to reduce behavior modification to a very simple culture in the household. And so I have a chapter dedicated just to that, and from what I hear from a lot of parents who read my book, it's really helped them.
All right, so one last question that I didn't write down, but I definitely have to ask because I'm very, very, very much into food politics. I honestly, I mean, I believe everything you're saying, but I don't think we can even get there until we stop eating fake food, until we stop eating chemicals, until we cleanse the body. We could have cleansed the body before we can cleanse the mind. I really believe that because I believe that the food keeps us sort of on a low vibratory frequency, and it stops us from being able to think and being able to interact in a compassionate and civilized manner. That's just my personal opinion as a vegan. But do you talk any about food politics? Do you say anything about food? I noticed that you lost weight because when I told my girlfriend that I was interviewing you, she didn't know who you was. She was in Dubai. She was pulling up your pictures. She was like, "Is he skinny? What does he look like?" She was trying to, see what you look like. And I said, "I think he's lost weight." And so I'm looking at you. I think you eat well. I think you've lost weight. But do you ever tackle that in your talks, the idea of food politics?
Well, I haven't lost weight. I'm still the same. It's just that in pictures I often look bigger than what I am. I do discuss
Well, ladies,
food.
he's thin. He's thinner than what he looks. He's thinner than what he
Yeah,
looks
most
like.
people say that. They say I'm taller than what I look and I'm thinner than what I look.
Now you look the same amount of tall though.
But with food politics, well, with Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy, we're going to be 80% raw and vegan school. We're not going to be 100% that because not everyone believes in a totally meatless free diet. I have a very good friend of mine, a very prominent doctor in Philadelphia, who, has done a lot of work on this topic, and he doesn't think that a person should totally be without the meat as well. And of course, it comes down to people's opinions, but we will be 80%. I don't see anything wrong with some sparingly meat that you raise. You have to raise it though yourself, but we're going to be 80% raw and vegan. I do agree with you that diet is key, but I know a lot of people who eat quite well and they're still mentally unhealthy, so it has to be a balance. Eating well but still thinking bad thoughts isn't going to help you. As a psychologist, the mind is the final frontier. The body is as well, body, mind. They're not even separate, they're one. But having a good appetite and a bad mental diet isn't going to help you. You got to have both. You got to eat right and you got to think right. It requires both of them. So food is important. It's very important, especially when you look at the fact that so many of our people are dying from diet-related diseases that are quite preventable. The obesity rate in our young people, the diabetes. Without question, we need to have a dietary revolution. But again, you have to make that revolution convenient. And one of the challenges for a lot of our parents is they lack the know-how and the information on exactly how to do that. And it needs to be very user-friendly because sometimes people are scared away from the vegetarian or vegan lifestyle by extremists. You can't be an extremist if you want people to change their behavior. Just like me with Pan-Africanism. If I want to bring somebody to Pan-Africanism, I cannot come to them in a very extreme way. And I think sometimes vegetarians and vegans can do a disservice to bringing people over into a healthier lifestyle because they're too extreme.
Right.
With the way in which they teach the diet. Nothing extreme is going to work. Extreme religions do not work. Extreme politics do not work. Extreme diet is not going to work. You have to bring them over slowly.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of recipes. I'm a vegan and I model veganism because I didn't want to be one of those preachy vegans. You know what I'm saying? So you can go to my Instagram and you can see what I eat. And I eat 85% raw, 100% vegan, but I have a fat disorder and my son has diabetes. And so when I did that, my life changed. So he always gets a good A1C. And even though I have a fat disorder, I can get in a size 6 dress because that's the way we eat. So I believe that for us, it was time to make an extreme change. Whereas I don't believe that everybody can be 100% vegan. So I think it's cool that you guys are going to go 85% raw, 80% raw vegan. I think that's great. How long do you think, how far have you gotten in terms of raising money for the school?
Well, we're at about $600,000.
Okay. So, and there's a rumor that's like you're at 2 million. So we got to get people to know, like, you're not there yet. We still need to give our money up. We still need to make donations to the school in order to see this happen. It's important that we do that.
And they can do that at gofundme.com/Dr. Umar. They can also mail in their donation to FDMG Academy, and a check of money order should be payable to FDMG Academy, and that can be mailed to P.O. Box 6872, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19132. And when they do make a donation by mail order, most of my donations are mail order. It's very important that they include their address, phone number, and email, because when we finally do open up the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy, because we want to have a ceremony to pay honor to everyone who donated, whether it was $1 or $1 million, to making that school a reality. So the school is definitely going to come. We want St. Paul's College in Lawrenceville, Virginia. If we don't get it, we're just going to keep on looking until we find another school that is almost as good as that. There's several schools I'm looking at right now around the country. But
that's the one you want,
St.
right?
Paul's. That's the one that I want.
We want to get you what you want. We want to see you. I want to see you open up this school, because I definitely believe that it's going to be a game changer for us on that K-12 level. Having we need the kind of institutions that are competitive, like their K-12 institutions are. So I think that's very important. And I just have one other question, and this is more so something that my husband and I talk about all the time, because when I hear you talk like me, like we need our community, our blah, blah, blah. And my husband's like, so all black people just gonna get together and be a community. I don't think that people really understand that community. Like when you say we, our women, we need systems, we need, you said we need systems, we need protocols in place. How do we build that when we are so spread out, so individualistic? How do we even begin that
Well,
process?
for me, I believe that it's going to be a difficult time trying to achieve that with the adults that we have today. I believe in the 75-25% theory, which is 75% of our efforts should go to our young people. That's where mine's is going. Team Pan-African, in the new year, we're going to be initiating a high school student movement to unify high school students and organize them to bring change, because they're a lot more energized, a lot more motivated, a lot more optimistic, and a lot more courageous than their parents are. So for me, focusing on those who are 25 and under is where most of my energy is going to go. I think we spend too much time trying to change adults. Psychologically speaking, it is very hard to change a conditioned mind. People go to therapy for years and they do not change. So trying to change black folk away from a self-hating energy to a self-loving energy, that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it can never be done if the person doesn't want to change. And that's the piece we keep on missing. You cannot make black people do anything, which is why my work as an orator is important, because I try to motivate and influence. That's the primary reason that I give the speeches, because I try to get people to see their reality a little bit different. You got to motivate them to change. You cannot make them change. They have to want it. And that is the brick wall that we keep running up against, because a lot of our people aren't motivated enough to make that change. But the children, they want it. The children, they're ready. The children have not let solidify their personality, their core beliefs, their agendas for their lives. I think we could do a lot more, a lot quicker if we focused on those under 25 than those over 35.
Thanks. So is your lecture open to the public tomorrow?
Yes, open to the public, and I believe it's free.
It's free? Okay. I don't know if we're going to spend the night. I'll have to check in, but I hope so. I really want that to be his social studies lesson tomorrow, and have him do a paper on it. How was it, Dorian? Did you get, he has a question. Did you get your question? You nervous? Why? No, I'm done, babe. Why? Ask your question. This is like $1 million question right here. One question. Go for it.
I hear you talking about people's mental state, and I have heard about stress can take its toll on the mind.
Yes.
So what do you think is the best way to deal with it?
Good question. Black people lead the country in hypertension, stress. A lot of the strokes and heart attacks come from that hypertension, which is not being able to process their reality in a way that doesn't do harm to the body. I think we have to teach our people how to relax. I think meditation is something that black people need to learn and practice on a regular basis. In fact, we need to meditate more than other people because we deal with more stress than other people. But I think one of the greatest things we can do to reduce stress and hypertension is to build more social supports in our community. For example, the average community doesn't have a brother circle. If I got something on my mind that I need to talk about, there's no place I can go that's not going to push religion or ideology where I can process. You understand? If you got something on your mind outside of your family, there's no place you can go to talk about your problems that's not going to try to change you into somebody you're not. So we need non-denominational, non-ideological social support groups for black folks. And we need them for every population. Single moms need them. Married mothers need them. Single brothers need them. Brothers your age need them. You follow me? Educators need them. Psychologists need them. Because we all deal with different types of stress under the overall umbrella of white supremacy. We need support groups. For all the consciousness that we have, I don't know of a single conscious support group that is not ideologically based or religious based. That's what we need. Our people need to be able to talk, to process, to explore, and to get advice. Where can you go to get that in a conscious community?
So do you remember we lived in a